Welcome back everyone to Data Science for Everyone. Today we're going to be looking at support vector machines using the cancer dataset. Let's get started. So support vector machines are a really cool machine learning algorithm. Now they're very similar in process, okay, for like naive Bayes and some other things like that. Now it is a supervised machine learning algorithm. Now, it is used for both classification and regression, very similar to decision trees, that type of stuff. Now, it is commonly used, though, mostly for classification problems. Particularly, it does very well with image classification. And it does this using what we would consider a hyperplane. Let me get a tool here to kind of discuss this a little bit, because this is very interesting for what kind of happens. So we have some data points here, and then some data points over here. And again, I'm doing this in a 2D space right now. And so you have maybe two dots, let's say here and here. These two, and then we would have a line here. It's technically the vector, but these guys here, and here are what we call support vectors. Okay, now what these are is these are the nearest data points to this hyperplane here and here. Now a hyperplane usually, again, this is usually in like a three-dimensional space. But if, for example, we were to remove this point, then this whole hyperplane would shift probably, again, this is the next closest one, to this point here. Okay, so it's very dynamic in that way. And these guys are considered critical elements that we need. So hyperplanes also have a tendency to have margins. So that's technically what that was bad. Let me undo. Here and here. So this, you would kind of have these little boundaries, these margins, and here that helps separate the two classes. So, and sometimes though, there's not a clear hyperplane. So for example, if we have here and you have maybe a bunch of green dots, but then let's say we also have a bunch of red dots inside there, then there probably isn't going to be a very easy way to do this in 2D space. Okay, however, if we were to maybe take this 2D space and let's say we made it into a 3D, I don't know, and we put it into a 3D space. Let me just clear everything and get a little bit more space. So if we put this into a 3D space, so we have a z-axis here, our x-axis here, and so remember our example was something where we had a bunch of dots. So here there's orange dots, but then also let's say that we had blue dots mixed in. Now on a 2D space, we cannot split these apart. However, if we take this into a third dimension, okay, it's very possible for us to have a proper hyperplane. So let me do this with orange dots. So some orange dots are here, and then the blue dots happen to be up here. And again, I'm just assume that they're like this. So technically, this would be like looking over here. We're like looking down at the data from up here down. But notice when we look in a three-dimensional space, we actually are able to cut across. And this, it's actually bad to do that as well. Try and make it so that my three-dimensional drawing is not very good. Okay, but this is technically a three-dimensional sheet, okay, or a hyperplane, and it would be separating these two groups. Okay, think about it as a sheet of paper. Let me see here if I actually. Okay, let's say I have a dollar bill, and so you have data points up here, you have data points down here, and then you have this hyperplane between them. Okay, and it would be something that looks like a sheet. Sometimes you can get them to warp and to move around in three-dimensional space as well. Now, there are, again, I'm going into a little bit more detail on these because it can be a very complex topic. Now, there are some, let me actually list these out, okay? There are some pros to using these, okay? They have good accuracy. They're accurate. They work well on smaller, clean data sets. They also are efficient to train, okay? Specifically on a subset. Now they also do have some cons in there as well. Okay, these are things that we need to actually be aware of. So one, not suited for large data sets. Okay, because again they're efficient to train on a subset or small data, but their training time gets exponentially large when you are doing it on a large data set. Okay, so training time too high. And that's what a lot of people fall into. They're like, oh, support vector machines, that's really cool. All right, let's do it. But then they wind up using too big of a data set, and it winds up it sucks all your time. And again, it is less efficient or effective on noisier or messy data. Okay, so there's kind of a lot of restrictions when it comes to this support vector machine layout. And again, it's different than anything that we've worked on before, but they do very well in classification tasks. And so let's actually go on and get started with that. So import pandas as PD, import numpy as MP, import seaborn as SNS, import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT, and then we do matplotlib inline. And we also want to do to actually load our data set. So from scikit-learn.datasets, we want to import and load breast cancer data. So our cancer data is load breast cancer. And this actually is actually a data dictionary. So we can look here at our keys. Why? Keys. Okay, maybe I just hadn't finished loading in yet. So, and you can see here, there's the actual data, there's target data, target names. We have this description, we have feature names, and a file name. So let's actually take a little bit of look at this data dictionary. So let's do print here, and we want the cancer data, and we want the description. So this has all of the information about the data set. So we see here that we have some attribute information here. So we have 569 instances. We have 30 numeric attributes. Now we have, again, these are for cancer, breast cancer data. And so, for example, we have the radius here. This is going to tell us something about the distance from the center, these centroids, to the perimeter. So how big it is. The texture, so it's going to be standard deviation on grayscale values. The perimeter area, the smoothness, compactfulness. So compactfulness, for example, is, again, how tight it is. Then the concavity. So concavity here is, again, severity. So how it's contoured. Okay, and also concave points, symmetry, and fractal dimensions. So again, how it's spreading out. We'll skip through some of this other stuff, but this has actually been used in quite a bit of research, as you can see here. So if you guys ever use this to do any type of stuff, make sure and kind of cite those sources to help these people out. They're kind enough to share their data with the world. So let's also look at our feature names here, and we want feature names. And so again, we have all of our names that we are going to want to use. So let's go on and actually let me actually just show you also the data itself. So if you notice, this is a NumPy array that it saved it as, and the data itself is also in a NumPy array. So let's get something we're more comfortable with, and so let's create our feature data set. So pd.dataframe here, and we're going to use our cancer. Cancer data, and then we're going to actually give the column names. In here is our cancer and our feature names. Let's run that and then do df feature. And we want to make sure, let's check the information on it, because I want to make sure that everything actually converted over. Because again, we're expecting all numbers in here because it is a numerical matrix, but just double check and look to see if everything looks right. We have full data. So we'll have to also check on how noisy the data is as well. Now let's look at our target. So our target here, for example, is basically going to be whether it's cancerous or not cancerous, I believe. Or maybe it's, let's actually look at the names. Here, what was the, let's go on and make the target, the data frame target next. And I guess I probably could have done these as X and Y, but that's okay. So let's do cancer and our target. And we want 2 columns here, and let's just call this cancer. Now let's actually, let's go on and look at the cancer, and we want feature names, and let's do .unique so we can see here. Oh, it won't do that because it's an array. So okay, we actually have 2. We have basically it's malignant and benign. Okay, so benign, non-harmful cancer, malignant, bad. Okay, so now we have our data set. So let's actually take a look at both of the data sets that we have. So we have, all right, look at our features here. And then we also have, and then let's also double check at our target just to make sure that it came out right. Okay, and it came out as well. And again, the target here is it's 0 or 1. So now let's go on and do an exploratory data analysis. And we want to make sure that let's just do just a very basic. Do we really want to spend time on it? You know what? I'm going to go on. We're going to skip the exploratory data analysis today and just go on and do the support vector machines. Because again, there's a lot of data in here, and it can be hard to interpret. Again, I have my doctorate, but I'm not a medical doctor. And so let's actually just go on and do train test split. So from scikit-learn.model, model selection, let's import our train test split, and then let's go on and from our train test split, let's grab our standards in here, snatch. And so we need to change these to df features, and then here we want to change this to df target, and then everything will be normal for there. Whoops, what didn't it like? Oh, because I have this on the end. There we go. So let's go on and train our support vector machine classifier. So let's call this SVM classifier. So from scikit-learn.svm import svc. SVM. I do have a bit of a problem with the way that they changed up everything here on all the other types. So for linear regression models, tree models, everything is kind of spelt out. But for some reason, when they went to the support vector machines, they started just doing SVC. I find that to be a little bit lazy. I wish they would change that so that's more human readable. So let's call this SVC and do SVC. It doesn't take in any arguments in here. And then we will also have our svc.fit on our X train and our Y train. Okay, that ran, and now let's actually do our evaluation and our prediction. You know what, let me also zoom in a little bit so things are a little bit clearer. All right, so let's create our prediction model. So we have model.predict, and then here we have our X test, and then, oh, whoops, not model, SVC. And then we also will do our metrics. So from scikit-learn dot metrics, we want to import, again, our classification report, and our confusion matrix. And let's see how our matrix actually did. So do something like a confusion matrix Y test with our predictions. And that actually did pretty well in here. Let's also look at how our classification report looks, though. We'll do Y test with our predictions. And here, and look at that, we are actually at a 90% accuracy on whether, or maybe if we look at recall, we're at 88 in here. So we're actually doing not bad. So we may look at doing some other things here. Again, I think that this particular data has already been cleaned. Let me take a look here, because this is actually quite high. And I will be right back in a second. I'm going to go on and show you guys grid search. It looks like this data was actually cleaned prior to what I did. It used to have a little bit more of the raw data. But I'm going to go on and show you guys how you would do this. Let's say that if your results were actually poor, instead of, honestly, this is great, how you would go about doing a grid search. Because this is actually, it's actually probably the more reasonable reason why I wanted to do this. Now, the thing is that when we are looking for parameters, okay, we haven't really talked about this before, but I think it's important to do that. We have to actually look for the right parameters. So this is, for example, we have C, or our gamma values. And it can be a real tricky thing, a little bit of a pain in the butt, okay? But again, there are some really nice ways to lazily evaluate these in a bunch of different combinations, so we can actually look at that. And so we'll actually use a grid search CV. Okay, so again, just a reminder, CV starts for cross-validation. Now, and this will help us actually create up our dictionary terms, let's create up a parameter dictionary. And we actually call this a parameter grid, because again, that's why we have a grid search. So we'll have a dictionary in here, and C is going to be 0.1, 1, 10, 100, 1000. We want our gamma to be 1, 0.1, 0.01, 0.001, and 0.0001. And then our kernel that we want here is going to be RBF. Now, you may kind of wonder what these are. I'd suggest you guys go on and read from the ISLR book. I believe this is chapter 14, when we start talking about the parameter and grid search, particularly the parameters. Oh, whoops. Okay. I forgot that I'm using the wrong syntax here. Equals. All right, so let's actually import our cross-validation for our grid search. So from scikit-learn .model selection import, and we have grid search CV. Now, one of the best things about this, okay, is that it is a meta estimator. Okay, so it takes an estimation such like our support vector classifier, and it's going to actually create a new estimation on top. And so this is it's going to behave exactly the same as we would before. So let me show you. So we do our grid, and let's do grid search. So we have our SVC classifier, and I want to, we'll do our SVC classifier here, and our SV classifier, sorry. And then we have our parameter grid, and then we want it to refit the model, will be true, and I want verbose in here to be 3. And again, verbose means that it's going to show our iterations, and so I want to be able to kind of see what it's doing while it's running things.
You've misspelled true.
True, thank you. There we go. We'll have that run. And so let's go on and fit this real quick. Grid.fit, and we want this on our X train and our Y train. And so here you can see here that it's actually running. I'm hoping that it's not gonna spit anything out that I don't, what's depreciated. All right, so we may have a bit of a problem here. And let me go on and check really quickly when we let's check our grid and see if it actually did this. So best, we have our best parameters. And here it actually tells us once it ran everything that our best parameters here are going to be our C is going to be 10, our gamma is going to be 10, 100, 1,000, so millionth. Okay, and then our best kernel is going to be our RBF. And again, we only gave it the RBF anyways. So let's actually go and grab our predictions. And what it does is it's already gone through and ran this based on its whenever we do the predictions, it will actually run this grid. It'll run the SVM as using those best parameters. So let's do keep it simple. Grid predictions. Here we'll do grid.prediction or predict, and on our X test. And let's do our confusion matrix. On our Y test and our grid predictions. All right, so again, we're doing very well here. And let's do our print. Let's do our classification report here, and our Y test and our grid predictions. All right, and so these are okay. So here you can see, even though the other one did quite well, our recall here is significantly better. It was 88 before, and now it's 96. So this definitely did increase the ability of our model to predict classification to predict classification or this breast cancer data well. And you can see here that this is definitely accurate, and it's also very useful for real-world applications. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this, please subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.